So I just wanted to share with you a quick example of how I was able to save my property management clients hundreds of dollars because I care about their money and because I don't have an insane amount of properties and not running a huge property management business. I could be a little more focused on each individual, their property, as opposed to the big companies. And there's definitely a need to have big companies because there's a lot of properties that have to be managed out there. And some people would prefer to have it be managed by a large company because some people feel that larger companies maybe can provide more consistency and be more, reliable. However, I tend to go for the individual who is can be more personable and more hands-on and have somebody who I can actually contact directly if I have an issue. And that's what I offer as a property manager. You can call my cell, text my cell if there's an issue, if there's a question. Now, in this particular situation, I was texted by the tenants that the night before the stove had gone out. And this was a property that I had leased out approximately 6 to 8 months prior. I have driven by there a few times just to check and make sure the lawn's being maintained and everything looked good from the outside. However, I typically do yearly inspections, so I hadn't been inside the house since I handed the keys over to them. Figured this was a good opportunity to just go over there, check out the house again, and help assess and figure out exactly what the issue was. When I got there, I talked to the current tenant, the gentleman. It was the wife who had actually texted me. Talked to the gentleman, and he basically had done the diagnostics that I was getting ready to go do. Check the breakers, check the stuff for the stove. Turns out this gentleman had been an electrician for many years. He is now retired, but ran his own electrical company. And so as we were pulling out the stove, going through the rest of the diagnostics, I could tell he knew what he was doing. And I'm saying this because normally I wouldn't have a tenant do work to the property. In this case, it actually made sense, and that was a decision I was able to make on site there, that a large property management company has rules in place to say, this is what can happen, this is what can't happen, and generally the person who you're talking to or the person who's making decisions isn't able to override those rules. Whereas as a small property manager, I can decide, well, in this case, this makes sense to go ahead and move forward with this. So as I said, we did the diagnostics, determined that it was the control board, the main little board in the back there that had gone bad. He actually disassembled it, and he was looking at the individual circuits, and we can see the burnout spot. And again, all this told me this gentleman knows what he's talking about. So I looked up the part very quickly at a part supply store, and the part was $211. Then on the way leaving there, I reached out to the owners and just let them know, hey, here's what's going on. First, I wanted to assess the situation before I even bothered them. Once I assessed it, here's what's going on. Part's probably going to be a couple $100. In this case, I think it makes more sense to go ahead and buy the part rather than buying a new stove, because it's still a lot cheaper than buying a new stove. You don't have to deal with having it delivered, all that kind of stuff. Got back to my office and started doing more searching online. Found the part on Amazon. It could be delivered the next morning, and it was less than $70. So again, because I care about my clients' money, and same as I care about my money, and I'm cheap or frugal. Let's say I'm frugal. I don't mind spending money, but I want to spend it wisely. So move forward with that. Got the part, less than $70. It was delivered to the tenant's house the next day. The tenant put it in and texted me that everything worked fine and good to go. Now, again, had this been a large company, they most likely would have sent out their appliance repair person who's got a minimum charge just for showing up. and what that charge would have been probably more than the cost of the part that we bought. And then they would have had to order the part, which would have been, they most likely would not have been looking on Amazon, so it would have charged the standard part rate and the installation. And at that point, it may not have even made sense to have it repaired, because once you start getting around $300, $400, maybe it just would have made more sense to buy a new stove at that point in time. Yeah. So that's kind of the difference of, one of the differences between myself and the larger company, is the fact that I can override, set the own rules and really look out for the best interest of the client and their finances.